Welcome to my channel. I'm Dani Walker. Today's episode is the recap for the Miss Grand International 2021 finale. What a show this year was. I have lots of things to say about this, but first, if you have not yet subscribed and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell so that you know when new episodes come out. And if you'd really like to support the channel, then you can check out my merch store, which is linked below. I know that a lot of you have been leaving comments on other episodes regarding Miss Grand International and the scoring for this year. So first I want to talk about my thoughts of the show, and then I'm going to get into a little bit about different pageant scoring for different systems. So we'll stick to that to the end. But first, let's talk about the staging of this show. Oh my gosh, the production did not disappoint. People always say it's very grand, and yes, that is very true. I think in terms of production, they're not just giving Miss Universe a run for their money, that they're setting the standard now for pageantry, as well as with shows like Miss France. Miss France, I've talked about this before. If you guys want to see an incredible pageant with great staging, go check out my Miss France recap from last year because that is incredibly impressive. So I actually put these two shows like on the same level because they're both incredible, but they're just different. So it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. What I did like about this show was just the theatrics of it. We opened with Abina singing a song. I don't know if this song was created for the pageant. If it was, incredible. Amazing. I'm all about using contestants and queens' talents during production. If you can sing, if you can dance, if you can host, whatever it is, if we can bring that to the show, wonderful. But it was incredible to see them hoist her up in the air for this performance. It reminded me of when Pink sang years ago, her song, I don't even remember what award show it was. If you know what I'm talking about, just comment that below. But it really reminded me of that. And it was incredible to see. And the opening number outfits and the dancing was elaborate. The outfits were elaborate. They looked custom. They were unique. I'm not sure who designed those, but it was just fun to see. It's very much a visually spectacular production. Before I talk about the top 20 performances that I personally loved, I will mention I was really shocked by the exclusion of Philippines and Thailand. Those were the two that were really just sticking out in my mind. And I know that so many of you have mainly brought up Philippines, but I also still thought that Thailand did very well during the competition. And so it really surprised me, and I felt that it was such a competitive year. If you guys watch my preliminary recap, you'll see that I had such a hard time narrowing things down to a top 20. But aside from my top 20, I felt that there were at least 10 other contestants that were right on the edge of being in that top 20. So I was actually even surprised to see them excluded from this top 20. And it was honestly, it was surprising. And you guys say, well, what can I say to that? I don't know, guys. I wasn't judging, and I also wasn't there in their interviews. So that could be something. That usually is something. And that is just all I have to say about the exclusion of some of my favorites. I'm going to focus on the contestants that if I were judging, I would be giving very high scores to. And so if I'm judging and I'm on the panel, giving them high scores with a combination of other judges, of course, you know, things are going to kind of average out a little bit. But these were the ones that really stood out to me personally. In no particular order. South Africa had a very interesting opening, and if you watched my swimsuit recap, you'll know that I really appreciated her performance there too. So I expected a strong swimsuit performance, but her walk reminds me of a specific Victoria's Secret angel, and I cannot remember which one. It's killing me. It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, it's on the tip of my tongue. Who does she remind me of? Let me know if you see that same walk from South Africa, and what Victoria's Secret angel am I thinking of? Because I can't figure it out. Loved this performance. Ecuador is somebody that I liked during prelims. I just feel like she was in such a tough spot during the lineup because everything's alphabetical, and it continues to be alphabetical throughout the show, which I feel like you should kind of mix up the order and see if that affects anything. I just like mixing it up personally. But when I was watching this performance, I actually thought her preliminary performance was a little bit stronger. That's just my interpretation of it, but she was someone that just, I think by nature of her following countries like Colombia, for example, and Dominican Republic, that for me, their performances edged her out a little bit. So that's why I really wasn't even sure about her top 20 placement, because you never know. Girls get bumped out and things can change in that interview room. So I wasn't even sure, but I also, to see her in the top 20, I was like, okay, yeah, still one of the best performances.
I skipped over Brazil in my notes by accident, but if you watch this channel, you know I love her so much. I thought that she was bringing a different energy to finals. I preferred the energy overall in prelims, but that final walk down the runway was it for me.
Costa Rica, she was giving me these old school Miss Universe vibes, which I really loved. She looked like she was genuinely having fun, which makes me a huge fan during competitions. So that's why I would be giving her a top score. Vietnam to me was very grand, so I was surprised because if we look at last year's top 20 and this year's top 20, I think that last year's top 20 was a little bit more creative with their walks, their routines, their facials, all sorts of things. They had these little signatures in there. And for me, Vietnam was the one that had that this year, so that seemed very on brand. She added her signature at the end, this little kiss thing that she did, and she looked great doing it. And once again, like I said, like her smile is so great on stage. She's using that, she's playing up her strengths. It was smart. Dominican Republic and her perfectly timed hair flips, my gosh, this performance just had me thinking, how would I actually score this if I was judging? Because after seeing Colombia and Costa Rica, if I was looking at the Dominican Republic, I would be very, very torn, and their scores would be very tight, and I would probably have to revert back a bit to their interview score and be thinking, okay, like who do I think deserves to keep moving on, and who do I want to see continuing to move on? Colombia, fierce entrance. And her hair is always looking amazing. For me, this was one of the best performances for swim. Indonesia for me for swim was really doing it. She was really doing it. Oh gosh, that face and the pose, I really enjoyed this performance. I liked her preliminary performance, but this was great. Puerto Rico, she also had fun on stage. I really like this little middle section that she added in during her routine. That's what's fun about watching Grand. You see routines that are a little bit more dynamic in comparison to, say, Miss USA that just happened this year, which if you guys watched that show, you will notice the routines at Miss Grand International are very dynamic in comparison to pageants like Miss USA, for example, where it looked like this year the contestants had to follow a very restricted routine for the swimsuit competition. If you watched it, and you can see it in my recap, they entered on stage starting with a single pose. They walked down a couple of steps. They did a pivot turn, walked to the end of the runway, and did a pose. So everybody was doing the same thing, but that is not the case in Miss Grand International, which actually I think makes it a little bit more interesting because the contestants are doing more things for us to see, and I think that when you allow them to have freedom, they're able to show you what their best is, what their strongest spin turn is, or pose, or whatever it may be. Anyways, aside from all of that, I really loved her performance. I enjoyed it. For me, it was one of the best in the top 20. Next, they announced the top 10, and then the top 10 were able to present a speech about war and peace. I always love that for this segment, they put them all in the same gown, but they're different gowns. It's just another opportunity to put them in something fabulous. So that was really fun to see. Now I'm going to share with you my top favorites. For this area competition, there were 4 contestants that really stuck out to me. Not saying that there weren't others that did well, but if I were scoring, these ones would really be sticking in my head when I was thinking about the overall competition. So first for me was Brazil. She made this point about peace not being the absence of war, but that it was essentially the absence of fear. And she really focused on knowledge and freedom in her speech. I felt like she was getting into some specifics, and she spoke with a lot of passion during this segment, and I personally really enjoyed it. Puerto Rico, I felt, was very assertive in her communication. She spoke with a lot of presence and was, I think, commanding the room. She really focused in on unity, equal opportunity to education, security, and healthcare. And she related all of this back to fighting for human rights. And then at the end, she signed some of this and the audience loved it. So it's nice to see contestants incorporating little extras like that. It's a personal touch, and if it relates to them and it makes sense, go for it. South Africa had a very different take on her answer. She centered everything around essentially kind of like the war on violence against women. And she talked about living in fear every day. She brought up some really sad statistics in her speech about sexual assault against women in her country and gender-based violence. And she decided to use this opportunity in this speech to remind people that violence can start in our homes and in our schools, and it's not just happening outside of these places. And then she said what she wanted to do if she were Miss Grand to create a more peaceful society. And I just thought that the direction of this speech was really well done, very well prepared. Vietnam did touch my heart when she spoke. So she talked about war in terms of that all of us have a war going on inside. There's this constant fight between evil and an angel, essentially, that's inside of you. And she also said that she stands there for people who have been abandoned and neglected, because the saying, as the saying goes, hurt people, right? So it sounds like she was really reaching out to these people. And then she tied this into her life, and she talked about how she grew up without parents, and that made her realize how important love was. But also she mentioned that we are our own heroes, and it was just interesting for her to say that she's standing up for those people that are feeling abandoned and neglected, and encouraging them not to act out of hate or evil, but to always remember to love. Then she said something in either Thai or Vietnamese, I would presume, and I'm not sure what she said, but then she made a sign she used her hand and made a sign at the end, and I'm not sure what she said. So if any of you out there know, please leave that in the comments below so we could share that with everyone else who is watching. For any contestants who are preparing for their next competition, if you want a little extra pageant help, check out my free pageant prep course, and that is linked in the description below. For gown, I had a few favorites. All right, so first of all, Puerto Rico had great eye contact, beautiful transitions of these soft facial expressions. It was working for her. And the spin turn that she put in the middle of this was effortless. It was smooth. It was elegant. It's something to learn from. Vietnam, I love this gown change on her. This was beautiful. This reminded me of a very grand gown. The hair was great with it. Loved the earrings. This styling was just, it was perfect. It was perfect for grand. The routine was great. She also did a spin turn in the middle, and I really liked that. And then I thought that her final pose, once again, just like how her swimsuit performance was very grand, at least in my opinion, I thought that the final pose for gown also very on brand for grand. Brazil's entrance. Incredible. That gown on her, I think it was a smart gown change for finals. I think her walk is just everything to me. It was personally my favorite evening gown performance of the night. That she would have gotten my top score for that walk. I love her so much. For me, it was just a moment, and I think that for her, the camera person, whoever was doing this and following her, did such a great job. It was just really, really well timed, elegant. And I was just surprised that she changed her pose at the end, because I really liked the final gown preliminary pose, that I felt like it was more unique. So just something to note. I want to mention Ecuador because she changed her gown for finals, and I really, really liked the gown change, but I thought that she could have had more eye contact with the camera or with the judges. It seemed like she was leaning her head to the right a lot versus to the left out towards the audience. And for me, that would have affected how I scored her. Next, the top 5 were announced and they all got to answer an onstage question. So here's what I don't love about the way that they did it. They asked them all the same question and they repeated it twice. The second time they repeated it was a rephrasing, and it was essentially saying that there's so many problems in the world, and they listed off some problems. If you had to speak to one person in the world about this, who would it be and why? And what I don't love about this is that they went in a random order of the contestants, but they didn't put headphones on the contestants. And I don't love that because I feel that when you let contestants listen to another one's answer during a final question and it's all the same question, it can affect how each contestant is going to answer. It can get in your head. It can cause you to repeat something somebody else said or not say something that you genuinely wanted to say because somebody else said it. And so that stuff does happen in pageants. I'm not a fan of that. I would like to see that change, but let's talk answers. Puerto Rico said that she would meet the president of the United Nations so she can promote inclusivity and change so that we can make a difference, essentially. It was a really short, concise answer. I think it was well said. I think that if the judges loved her very much after interview and overall, that potentially could have been a winning answer. But so much is subjective in pageantry, and since I personally didn't feel any sort of deep personal connection to this answer, I didn't feel like if she was on the edge that this would sway somebody in her favor. Ecuador said Malala, and this answer was a little bit confusing to me because she talked about Malala Yousaf, who is really well known because she fights for girls and women's education in her country. She had been shot and left for dead and recovered from this, and really cares about education. So she said that she knows we can achieve what we want with a child, a book, and a pencil. Education, right? And she would tell Malala that she's not alone and that we're together on this idea. And I feel like this answer to me would have made a little bit more sense if she would have said, I would speak to Malala, and the issue I would like to address is the problem that we have with education around the world, and then given this answer, because without that little statement in there, I was confused on this answer. And I just felt that there was a little bit of a disconnect there. Brazil said, you guys, this answer cracked me up, okay? So she said that she would meet with the president of Brazil and she would tell him that, this part isn't funny, but that we need support, healthcare, education. Please take care of your country, do your job. And well, you guys have to go back and watch it. And the answer itself isn't funny, but what I thought was funny is it was the way that it was delivered was almost in this way of like a slight scolding to the president, and it kind of made me giggle, just the delivery of it. Like I said, not the answer itself or within context. And I think it was, she was telling him, like, you need to take care of your people, which is true, but I've just never seen a contestant kind of give a scolding, right? A little scolding to the leader of their country. So it was interesting to see. Now, Vietnam, I actually couldn't make out the person that she was referencing that she would talk to, and I wasn't even, because of that, it was unclear to me, her answer. So she talked about spreading thanks to a person who had invented something and to give them credit for their invention, because this person sounded like they have gone on without thanks for this invention that they created. So I couldn't really hear that. Could have been my headphones, who knows? But if you know what she was referencing, you can leave that in the comments below. Now, South Africa. She came in strong for this answer. She said she would speak to the president of her country and talk about the responsibility to vaccinate people. And the way that she delivered this answer, I felt like she thought she was going to get a lot of applause from the crowd. I felt like that was the vibe, because sometimes you see contestants and they're really bringing it for the onstage answer, because they're like, this is going to be a strong answer. I'm going to get the crowd going. We're going to be hyped up together. Like, I was getting that like hype up vibe from her. And so she's saying her answer and nobody claps about this. It's just dead silent. And obviously that's not going to be the effect that you want. And then at the end of the answer, people just gave their usual clap, but there wasn't some huge cheer for this answer. So that was kind of interesting. The results were fourth runner-up South Africa, which I kind of understood because I was like, okay, this makes a bit of sense just because I think the reaction of the audience, and I think that when an audience reacts very well to you, that can also help contestants, and it can influence the judges because judges are gonna go, okay, they loved her, like, oh, maybe I should give her a second thought. Maybe I love her more than I thought too. Third runner-up was Puerto Rico, second runner-up was Brazil, and then we came down to our top two. I will say, by the way, Vietnam's reaction to even being in the top two was so sweet and just precious, and I loved it. And then, in the top two, they said that they had a tie. And I thought, why? Why? Last year we had a three-way tie, and this year we have a two-way tie. More on that in a minute. Hold on. And then they gave them the tiebreaker question of why you should be crowned. Once again, not giving them headphones, which I always think are helpful. Ecuador went up there and she said that she should be crowned because her dress and prelims and her gown tonight matches the crown. Pretty sure she was just joking about this. She just like gave a little giggle. It's like, okay, just making light of it. But then she said that she embodies the three things that they look for, which is beauty, body, and brains. And then she said that she is hardworking and ready for the job. This is not what I expected to hear for an onstage answer, especially when you're looking at competitions and onstage answers like Miss Universe 2015, Pia's answer. And I think that usually what you're waiting to hear from that answer is the specifics of the qualities or what you uniquely bring to this job. So I felt that this final answer wasn't really in depth personally. And then Vietnam came up and she says that it was really sweet. She said, honestly, I didn't think that I would be here right now. I'm a little bit nervous. And she mentioned that the international director wants a girl that is ready to work. And then I believe she spoke in Vietnamese. I'm not positive, and I don't know how to translate that. And then she wrapped it up by saying that she is ready to work in Thailand for the year. So once again, just an answer of like, I'm ready. So when I heard these top two answers, I didn't feel like there was a very clear distinction between the answers that if I were judging, I would say, oh yes, this is the one I want. So I kind of felt like we were at square one and just reconsidering their overall performances and picking your favorite from there. So that was kind of my impression. I personally also would have thought that Brazil would have been in the top two. I loved her throughout the entire competition. I thought that she had an incredible performance. I'm such a fan. And by the way, their crowns are really beautiful. Can I just say that? Like the crown's really, really beautiful. So anyways, Vietnam won in the end. And I do want to talk just a little bit in this episode because I know it's already getting long, about scoring, because some of you have been commenting that there have been some controversies online regarding the top 20 for this pageant, and people are saying that the contestants in the top 20 are not selected by judges, but that they are selected by members of the organization. And that's one thing. The other thing for me is, why would you have 2 years in a row where there is a three-way tie and then a two-way tie? And so to me, I'm like, why are we doing this? Why not just then add in a final question for the top three to make sure that this doesn't keep happening? Personally, I don't really understand that. And the other thing about ties though, is that typically, so I've worked for pageant organizations and I've been behind the scenes and I've been there for those, scoring processes and the tabulations. And there is typically within an organization's policies a list of tiebreakers, and this could be a number of different things. It's different for every organization, and this isn't something that is usually shared publicly because it's not something that usually happens. Typically, you can eliminate a lot of ties by using decimals when people are scoring pageants. Other pageants only allow you to use whole numbers while you're scoring, but they may have also an option for a set of plus and minuses. So it's like, okay, I loved her, she's a 7, she's also a 7 in my book, but she's a 7 and I liked her a little bit more, so she's a 7 plus, and this girl was the 7 minus, and this girl was just a 7. So there are some different distinctions like that organizations do have, but if contestants are dead tied, you usually go down this list of tiebreakers. So for example, an organization might say, our first tiebreaker is, let's revert back to both of these contestants' interview scores. Whoever has the highest interview score wins. That's normal. And then if that's dead tied, which I've seen, then they may refer back to that plus and minus system, or they may refer to things like judges' comments, like who had the most positive judges' comments, or what if somebody had negative judges' comments, they could refer to that. Or they start going down the other areas of competition and saying, okay, aside from interview, who had the highest scoring evening gown competition during preliminaries, so on and so forth. There's usually all of these lists of tiebreakers. So I just personally don't understand why they're putting tiebreakers during the show. There really is no need for it if you have policies outlined ahead of time. Also, a lot of issues was the selection of the top 20. This is also something that is different for every single organization. You know, a lot of pageants, yeah, they'll let the judges just choose, but some are going to say, okay, the judges choose 10 of our top 20 and members of the organization are choosing the rest. Miss Universe is pretty transparent about this, although they don't get into detail about it. If you notice at the beginning of the telecast, they say that our title holders were selected by judges and members of the Miss Universe organization. So the thing that they don't tell you is how much do the judges' scores weigh in comparison to members of the Miss Universe organization, and who are these members? Well, most assuredly, these members are going to be the president, potentially staff members that are watching and observing the contestants throughout the entire duration of the competition. Guys, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that I've never really gotten into on this channel. But if you guys want to see an episode dedicated to this, let me know. I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit for this episode, but let me know whatever other questions that you have. Please leave any of your questions, comments below. Let me know what you want to see next on the channel as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope that you loved it and you'll choose to share it with your friends and subscribe and hit the notifications. Till then, I'll see you next time.